Welcome to The Issue here on your TV. I'm Mark Carr, and you'll notice that The Issue is looking a little different today. I'm at home, our producer's at home, and our guests are safe at home. We'll be broadcasting this way for future episodes of The Issue to keep the community updated. My co-host this week is John Sawyer, retired CEO of the Oakville Chamber of Commerce. Hello, John. Are you safe?
Hi, Mark. I am. We've been really good. I'm trying only to go out once a week and get groceries and to the drugstore, so we're doing everything we can. So far, so good. We really miss our kids and our grandkids, but other than that, we're muddling through just fine.
As long as you're staying safe, that's the important thing. John, I'm going to turn it over to you now so that you can introduce our first guest.
Okay, well, I'm excited as always to have Julia Hanna with us. Julia was the chair of the board of the Oakville Chamber of Commerce. She founded a not-for-profit organization called Healthy Fam. And I think most people in Oakville would know her as a restaurateur who's had some iconic restaurants here in Oakville and currently owns Ritorno, which is up on Dundas Highway, just west of Trafalgar Road, one of my absolute favorite places to be. So Julia, welcome. Thank you for doing this. You and I have been chatting over the last while about what's happening in the restaurant industry, what you've personally been doing. So I thought we should just talk about what's happening at Ritorno, what you've done and what your plans are.
Well, we closed the day before we were mandated to close because it's quite obvious what was going to happen. It was heading there. And I think it was the right decision, as painful as it is for the hospitality industry. It was the right decision. And we have, since then, we have brought in we're trying to be proactive, like everyone is in these times. We've brought in a cleaning crew, sterilized our kitchen. And right now, we're cooking for people who can't. And this is something that we're doing to give back to the community that has supported us for so many years. 38 years I've had restaurants, John, in our community, and I'm grateful to everyone who let that happen. So we, for example, today after I finish with you, I put on my chef gear, and with my sons, we're going to prepare 70 meals for the Kerr Street Mission.
That's
and
great.
We're going to bring them hot, and then people will come and pick up their food because it's a communal place and people can't sit down and eat together. The volunteers can't go in and prepare the food. So we offer an alternative. So
you're donating this. This is something you're doing as a donation. Now, I know you tried or were doing takeout and then stopped doing that. Can you just explain that decision?
Well, our takeout business was anywhere from 10 to 20% of our business. And it didn't model itself to stay open for that, especially since our industry right now, bigger restaurants, everyone is competing for that small percentage, right? And it felt right for us for this time being, because again, we may open when the time is right for takeout, but it felt like the right decision. And again, I'm sitting from a vantage point of having done this for 38 years. I get to make choices. I'm freer to make some choices that maybe a lot of other restaurants can't. And so cooking for others who can't right now is the way to go for us.
I know.
Julia,
Yes.
what is the number one issue you'd like people to know about the restaurant business under these conditions?
Oh, my goodness. I am, as you know, Italian background and very expressive verbally. I have no words to describe the impact that this is having on our industry. Canada employs in the hospitality industry anywhere between 1.2 and 1.5 million people. 2 weeks ago, just about 2 weeks ago, 800,000 staff were laid off. Those numbers in itself are beyond astounding. And if you look at even the hotel industry and the motel industry, they're at 10% occupancy. Think of all those people who feed off of that. The cleaners, the technicians, like it's a snowball. But I believe, and not just because I'm in it, I believe the stats will show you that our industry is going to be one of the most profoundly hit hard, right? We will come out of this, but we need to be realistic about what that's going to look like.
Julia, I wanted to ask about your staff. I know you have a special relationship with them and work closely with them, obviously. What's happening with your staff?
Well, we've laid them all off, and kudos to all levels of government. Like, we have always wished that our governments would work better together, and we are really blessed to now see that all levels of government are working together, and they're not fighting with each other, they're actually supporting each other to be able to help our industry along with other industries, and we are grateful for that. So they are now all not working, every single one of them. And if there's anything that keeps me up at night, because I happen to know these people that work in my restaurant, and I can tell you without a bit of hesitation, they are astounding human beings. So this is what keeps me up at night, you know, knowing and yeah. Yes,
so obviously the industry is basically shut down, other than the takeout that people can do, and it's going to be, based on what we're hearing, maybe 2-3 months. This has to go on. Have you given any thought to what the end of this looks like for the industry?
Well, and let's talk about that takeout too, because I'm sure the numbers will confirm this. I think even the numbers of people taking out is slowly dropping, because people are being that much more cautious today, you know, even more so than a week ago. And when this is all said and done, our industry, John, imagine just a matter of 2 months ago, the main concern our industry had, which was all across Canada, is that we could not find staff. You know, operators were calling other operators, you know, groups were gathering together to say, how do we get and how do we make this an industry that's going to attract more people, right? So we went from that to this, you know, where over half of the industry, 3/4 of the industry already is laid off. How do you adapt to that? The sad thing is, our industry is a cash flow business. So when you come to my restaurant this week, we're paying for the bills from 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. That is every restaurant. That is the model. So what's going to happen? We're going to lose a lot of restaurants. And that breaks my heart.
Julia,
yes.
What do you think this is going to look like afterwards? Just to follow up on John's question,
Yes.
At the end of this, because there is going to be an end to it, what is your business going to look like in Oakville?
Well, you know, what we've decided to do is we've decided we are going to take the most positive road we can. So when we reopen this restaurant, I am looking at it like a brand new opening, like all my licenses have come in and now I can start getting ready. So as soon as that door opens, we are starting fresh. There isn't going to be one single bit of food. There's nothing in this restaurant that we're stocked with right now. We're going to start all over again. And I'm choosing to look at that as a brand new opening. So what's this going to give me time to do? You know what I'm doing right now? I'm working on menus. I'm working on better takeout. I'm working on more efficiency. We're going to be leaner and meaner and better. So people, when they walk in the door of any restaurant that reopens, has to walk in and go, whoa, they're energized, they're alive.
And are you getting cooperation from your landlord and Oakville Hydro and so on? Those non-governmental people that are supposed to be pitching in and giving you some help as an entrepreneur, are they helping?
Well, John and I are both smiling at this because we know what the realities of this are going to be. It's going to be a challenge because everyone, you know, is struggling, and it's hard for us to imagine someone as big as a huge Smart Centers, our landlords here. How are they going to be struggling? Of course they are. Everyone's going to be challenged. I haven't put it to the test yet. I'm about to. I was able to pay April's rent, but there will definitely, and we should talk about this again, because the reality of negotiating and everyone supporting each other isn't going to become real until, I believe, to its maximum, until the beginning of May. And that's when we're going to see what real wiggle room we have, what cooperation do we have, what can we do realistically. And it won't happen, I believe, until the beginning of May.
I agree with you. I think we had that chat that May 1st, I think, will be the crunch date. Everybody was freaking out about April 1st because rents were due, but people still had money coming in. So
Yeah.
now we're going to go through a month without any revenue.
Yep.
And what happens on May 1st?
And John, you were and Mark, John was talking to me earlier about what restaurants really mean to people. This is big. Our industry, we don't just provide food to feed you. We provide a place to gather. We provide a place where memories are made. We are a respite center where people could come and forget about the outside world, and they can gather together and feel better after they leave than when they came in. And we don't just serve food. We are so much more than that. And that's another thing that people are going to be missing, is that sense of community that happens in each and every restaurant.
That's true. It's a place to gather. It's a place to celebrate. It's a place to commiserate. And that opportunity has gone away, unfortunately.
Let me ask you, Julia, in the last couple of minutes we have with you, what could our governments, municipal, provincial, and federal, do for you in the restaurant business that they aren't doing?
Well, I think what they have to do, and what I believe they're trying to do, is they have to recognize ours is an industry that truly is going to be hardest hit in such a way. And I don't want to say devastated. I hate using that word because devastation is such a negative word, but unfortunately it's a reality. So what they have to do is they have to help us, and they're trying to do that already by the employer health tax, reducing the base amount when you have to start paying employee health tax. We have to look at how we structure our HST. That's another issue that we have to look at. And we have to look at how we're going to continue sponsoring staff or supporting staff so that the employer isn't the only one that has to be responsible for keeping our staff employed.
I hope they're all listening to you, Julia, and thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it. Stay safe and stay economically viable.
Well, you know what? It brightened my day to speak to both of you. I do miss, John, I do miss your hugs. I got to tell you, you owe me a few when we see you next. And Mark, you give my best to your brother, who I know is working really hard. And thank you so much, gentlemen. And we'll talk again, I'm sure.
I'm sure we will. Thanks, Julia.
Well, thank you.
Julia.
Take it easy.
Okay, John, that was a great interview with Julia. But now you've got Drew Redden from the Oakville Chamber of Commerce. So I'm going to throw it to you to introduce Drew and throw the first question at him.
Thanks, Mark. I had always planned, as you know, to have a session with Drew on the program. This was not the session that I had envisioned. But for those of you who don't know him, Drew Redden is the president of the Oakville Chamber of Commerce, and he has done a really great job when the leadership in the chamber transitioned to him, and I'm so proud of what he's done at the chamber. So I'm thrilled to have him here. Hopefully we could talk about the chamber some other time, but for now we want to talk about the impact of the COVID virus on the business community in general and what he's hearing locally. So Drew, thanks for doing this. I know how busy you are right now, so I really appreciate this. Why don't we start with the survey that the chamber put out?
Yeah, and John, just echo your comments off the top. Thank you for having me. Thank you to Mark as well. And I too agree. I wish it was under different circumstances we were chatting, but these are certainly challenging and unprecedented times. So I do appreciate the opportunity for you to have me on. The chamber, as you know very well, John, we have over 1,100 members, businesses that choose to be part of our local chamber community. And when the news of COVID-19 really hit our Canadian economy, we did unprecedented engagement with the community. We called and contacted all 1,100 members to really understand, boots on the ground here in Oakville and here in Halton, what these challenges these business communities are facing. We did this through phone calls, emails, and as you mentioned, surveys off the top. The number one challenge that we heard that faces all industries, large companies, or small companies, is cash flow. This comes down to cash flow concerns for businesses, whether it's they're worried about being able to pay their employees, worried about being able to keep their doors open for another month or two. It's the uncertainty in the economy, and the business community needs cash flow support to keep people employed and to keep their doors open.
But Drew, it's more than just an influx of dollars to keep them afloat. And you were talking offline about the ability for them to pay their rent, the hydro, all of those things that go into making up a business. And so how are your members dealing with that?
Yeah, and we can talk about the implications of cash flow, and that's kind of the central point of how it impacts everything from rent to bills to employees. So our members are, every industry is different. We've seen the provincial government list the essential services, which were businesses that were allowed to stay open. Initially, a couple of weeks ago, we saw that list was quite broad. And, we saw different organizations pivot their operations. The restaurant industry moved from dine-in, full service to curbside delivery and takeout. We saw these businesses pivot based on what an essential service was. Just on Friday, we saw that list almost cut in half. So we're going to see another industry kind of have to pivot and understand what their new reality looks like. Hardware stores, for example, they are now limited to curbside pickup. So we're seeing, this during this unprecedented time, unprecedented challenges that require unprecedented solutions. So, the chamber was very vocal off the top regarding the 10% wage subsidy that the federal government announced. This was not enough to make any meaningful impact, any meaningful difference for these businesses. Chamber here in Oakville, across Ontario and across Canada, called for an increase to that subsidy, and the federal government responded with a 75% wage subsidy. However, they made the announcement, and they're trying to roll out a program that's going to roll out tens of billions of dollars into the economy, trying to design that in a matter of days and weeks. There's going to be challenges, and we're seeing those businesses put their hand up and say, this is a great program, but it doesn't work for me. And that's what we're trying to do right now, is work with these businesses and make sure our federal representatives, Minister Hanna, MP Damoff, hear firsthand from our business community to understand, I like the concept of this 75% wage subsidy, but under the current parameters, it doesn't work for my business.
So Drew, Ted talked about some gaps in the programs. Maybe you could just give us some examples that people could relate to in terms of where the gaps are.
Yeah, so the number one flaw or challenge with the program, it's not so much a gap, but it's the length of time we're expecting this program to take to roll out. We're hearing minimum 6 weeks before businesses start seeing any of this funding on the wage subsidy. That is not acceptable. We have businesses that, we just had to pay April 1st rent. We have May rent coming up, and the federal government is telling these businesses they won't have that subsidy by the time May rent is due. So the length of time is the first flaw with this program that we need to address. When we start getting into specifics, we're seeing the 30% gross revenue decline. That's the number the federal government kind of set. That on a broad scale, you can sit back and say that makes sense. But let's start talking about new businesses that don't have a March 29 to compare to in that year over year, or businesses that are scaling up. You may have had a small operation and you took a chance, you took on some more debt, you're growing at a rapid rate, and your March 2020 doesn't compare to March 2019 because you're in a completely different business. So these startups and these new businesses, they're kind of left out of this funding when we're putting that 30% benchmark. What we're also looking at is businesses, and I talked about this in my first answer, regarding that have had to reinvent their business model. The business that someone may be operating during the COVID-19 times, in April 2020 is not the same business model that they were operating in April of 2019. And to illustrate that, you have a restaurant that has now shifted to serving takeout. They don't need the number of staff to serve takeout that they did to fill a full restaurant. So a 75% wage subsidy to keep Canadians employed, doesn't work when another level of government has said, and for good reason, that we can't gather in a restaurant. That restaurant still has rent. There's no, they have to pay that rent no matter if they're operating with the revenue of a dine-in or takeout. So federal supports to help pay that rent and keep them going, that's more impactful. So there's a lot of challenges in, it's a great program from abroad, but when we dive into it, there's going to be some businesses and employers that are left out of this.
Good, thanks for that, Mark. I apologize.
Drew,
I stepped on you there.
No, that's not a problem, John. We'll deal with the technology as we go. But Drew, I think it's important to recognize, as you mentioned, a lot of these programs would normally take 18 months to 2 years to actually roll out, and they're doing it in days. So there are going to be stumbles along the way. I'm impressed with the flexibility and the quickness of chamber members in responding to these daily changes that occur, whether it's open, you're closed, provide curbside pickup, and that impresses me. And I guess it was always there with your members, but I think that's important that they remain flexible because things are changing on a daily basis.
Absolutely. We talk in the office that, a day feels like a week and a week feels like a month with all the information that's coming at us. And, as a chamber, we're really trying to be that trusted source, that condenser of information that makes sure our members have the most up-to-date regulations from the government, have the most up-to-date regulations for their business that allow them to be nimble, to move with this and continue to operate. But we also have to realize that not every business has the ability to do that. And it's important that you're absolutely right. These programs, which would normally take years, are being rolled out in a matter of days. And we commend the federal government for the work they're trying to do to support them. But at this time, our members need this money now. These are unprecedented times, creating unprecedented challenges that require unprecedented solutions. And we need them to be nimble, because if we don't get this right now, we might not have many of these businesses to come back to when we're through COVID-19.
So, Drew, we just had a chat with Julia, as you know, and talked about the restaurant and hospitality industries, which I think will be one of the sectors most impacted by all of this. Another segment of the business community people don't often think about are the charities and not-for-profits out there. They represent 10 to 15% of the economy. Are you hearing anything from those sectors at all?
Yeah, absolutely. And, to the federal government's credit, not-for-profit charities have been considered a business in this support every step of the way. So the wage subsidy, the 75%, does apply to the charitable sector, the not-for-profit sector. But there's also other challenges, in terms of those not-for-profits that are driven by fundraising, right? It's more and more difficult to raise funds in this time of uncertainty. So there are going to be other supports required. The federal government has signaled in their press releases that they're aware of that and will continue to put forward solutions. So again, we're optimistic that the federal government understands this, as has been reflected in their messaging to date.
So, Drew, I've been impressed with some of the things you're doing specifically at the chamber in terms of running your operations, what you're doing with the staff, and maybe you could just touch on some of those things so people understand the challenges in running a business, because the chamber is a business.
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly is a business. And, we've been disrupted as well. As you can see, I'm here in my home office as opposed to at the chamber office. We started with a bit of a skeleton staff, at the office, and slowly have transitioned to working from home. So we're a business that was not used to working from home. So in a matter of time, we had to kind of be nimble and set up our operations, which is very similar to businesses from all industries across this country. So learning Skype, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, how to communicate over video has been very important. But we also, as a business organization, have to lead the charge in creating that sense of normalcy, that we are able to adapt to this new reality, and we're able to continue to inform our members, provide content, provide that support that they require, whether that's through the communicating of important information or providing forums for them to come together and hear directly from elected officials.
Drew, I really appreciate you being part of the show today and telling us about the chamber and the challenges that you face. I want you to stay safe, and I hope all your members continue being flexible and being able to adapt to changing circumstances. So, thank you very much for joining us.
And thank you, Mark, for having me. Just one last plug. It's so important that we do everything we can to support our local business at this time, whether that's order online from them, order pickup, takeout, buy a gift card for use at a later date, or simply share on social media. These are our friends and neighbors, and they need our support more than ever right now.
I thank you so much, Drew, and that's an extremely good point. I do want to remind our audience that as they know, these are difficult times. The Issue and Your TV will continue to provide relevant, up-to-date information, and please check in with Jessica on Halton News each weekday for local news. So, John, we'll see you later. Stay safe, and we'll see our viewers next week here on The Issue. Stay safe, everyone.